Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21B or 22, however you
21.
want to look at it.
I like 21B
Yeah,
because that makes me.
Lokil or local, or I like Lokil because I don't like it
I like
sounding like
Lokil.
local. I'm a
No, I like
Lokolian,
Lokil. Well, like, or if you're a Norse, Loki L.
right?
It's Loki Loki with an L at the end. But I've always pronounced it Lokil. I don't
Yeah,
know anybody who's pronounced it other than that. One of those few that I feel like people are rather relatively consistent on.
and I
that
feel like
doesn't that isn't a part of a pronunciation guide.
when I announced it on Twitter, it was like the city of Lokil, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. And why is that, Sarah?
Why is
What
that?
is the history of Lokil?
So Lokil. Back before the Accrudan was the land of ultimate suck.
Yeah,
When it was actually fairly habitable. It
when there were
was
these things called
a
plants.
yeah. Well, not in the dead. There was still a desert there, but it was not as big as it is in AD
Right.
150.
It was a great
Lokil was
wasteland,
pretty
isn't
much on the border of what was way back when part of Zakitski or Safiski. That one I can't
it?
pronounce.
Zafisk.
And it was actually part of Zakitsk when Zakitsk was a heck of a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And basically put over the between Zakitsk and the Elzen Empire and that whole region at the southern tip of the Gasgar Mountains. Back when I think like there's a big gap here, but presumably like right where there was a mountain pass at the south end of the Gasgars, and it was just basically a city kind of between the mountains and the desert, and it was a decent sized city. And then the war happened.
Yeah.
Well, first it kind of became sort of like a when as the kids sort of fell apart, it was like we're still here, sort of on our own, surviving. And then the war happened, and then Thulkas sort of exploded in the middle of the Recruiting, not when he was defeated, but just in one of the big battles, which killed like a million people, millions of people, I should say, and served as much fodder for that wall of bones we talked about last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and amongst them blew up the city of Lokil.
Yeah.
Like basically, what's that? Pompeyed it
Yeah.
effectively,
Yeah.
which is not which is one of multiple Pompeii like events in this area of Gelfbad,
Right.
and effectively just destroyed the
Yeah.
city completely. And well, actually some say it might not have been Thulkas, some say it might have been Kadam. It's actually unclear which Titan did this, but effectively erupting volcano, earthquake, avalanche, the whole works. So the city that was right on the edge of this mountain basically is completely destroyed. Except for one tiny piece. Where inside the mountain, kind of tucked away, which they had conveniently preserved. It's like this will be safer here anyway. Was this library of knowledge? All that kind of Library of Alexandria kind of thing. And it was untouched during this cataclysm. How was it untouched? The new lore is very, very, very vague. The old lore less vague, which I think is hysterical.
Still vague, but less vague.
New lore is like it was untouched, we don't know why. And the new lore is probably Hadrada, maybe Hadrada. He like went ooh holy thing, or a wizard did it.
I can see it in slow
Um,
motion, like Hadrad was just like,
I will
no, and
protect
just
my
like
life.
wrapped himself around it, and it didn't suck for everyone inside like it did for everyone
So
outside.
So basically, everybody dies except for this bunch of librarians and a bunch of books
Yeah.
and whatever their artifacts and stuff that were in there. So, and that's all that survived was this library on the side of a mountain. That was it. And the handful of people who survived. War happens. Bunch of refugees are kind of looking for places to be, and the library was like, "Hi, we're still here,"
Right.
and they started to like grow a bit and digging further into the mountain to be more protective um, and expanded a bunch and became one of probably the biggest location in Galespat of weird ass lore. Just if you want to know something obscure or whatever, this is the place to go. There's a lot of lore locations in Gelsbad, mind you. There's the Phylacteric Vault, which has got the name Phylacteric Vault. There's a location in the city of Hadrad. There's the Bridge City has their own college of lore, but Lokil is the one by far that's the most famous for it. And inevitably, any long-term adventure that happens in Scarred Lands will go here at some point. At least everyone I have run, it's like, are we going to Lokil again? You know, it's the center point of we need to know whatever the thing MacGuffin information is, and you kind of end up here. As it's the library, it's that kind of obscure knowledge thing. Although, as I said, Gelspad's kind of famous for lots of these. There's a lot of these locations, but none are bigger or more. Has more obscure stuff, and known for just weird stuff. Like the Phylacteric Vault is known for magic lore specifically. Lokil is known for everything. Like, you know, big card catalog. And that's what it was for a long time. And they've slowly been expanding it. And they've reinforced it, and they've built it within the mountain. They've basically hollowed out these extensive archives, extensive living spaces. The top of the mountain, they've built an observatory, telescope. I can't speak today.
Yeah, observatory. Yeah.
Observatory. Yeah. So, where they've got that business going on. So they're in astronomy and astrology is pretty much the same thing on the Scarred Lands, honestly, because, you know, there's nothing contradicts my theory that there are no other planets. So I would argue that astronomy and astrology is pretty much the same thing. But this is where David studied the zodiac and all of that business up there in the observatory, and then they've just sort of dug down. The new book really doesn't say a lot. There's about 3 paragraphs that describe Lokil. It's like, it's this library you can go to and learn shit. Very, very safe. Very, very well protected.
Yeah.
Very neutral.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing gets me. So nobody really fucks with it. Like, Holofaust is always dealing with some kind of somebody's trying to invade. The Akruden, super dangerous. Something's always happening. Shelzar's got stuff going on there, although they've got, you know, they're big and bulky. Lokil is not big. This book claims 50,000, which I think is about a digit off in terms of size. I can't imagine. The map is just not big enough for that many people. I imagine it's probably like 5 or 10,000 people, but
and it could just open for interpretation. It could very well be that those 50,000 people don't live inside the library. Those people are probably the descendants of those who came to the library, and then maybe they're building around it again. Maybe that city that was there has like their buildings, like maybe they're like upping, like they're digging at ruins or something like that. I would not assume that 50,000 people are stuffed into the library. It would be weird.
No,
but maybe
it would be huge. It would be on the level of Barak Torn. And
yeah.
Nothing to imply that. There's nothing in the description that implies that that's that big. So you interpret it as they've got some buildings outside the mountain. I interpret it as the number's wrong.
And that could also be.
Mostly because it's also described as that the ruins of the old city are unlivable and uninhabitable, and periodically they have to send people down there to beat back some rising zombies that show up, and some undead that just like, because wherever a bunch of people died, you know, give it a year and undead will just show up. So, you know, every once in a while they have to, no, stop, go back to sleep.
Dude. Bad undead.
Bad undead. So yeah. Interpret it however you will. I just imagine the numbers off because it would be consistent with other numbers being off in Scarred Lands books.
What?
There's only 50,000 people live here. But somewhere however, whatever the way you want to set the population is, and there are extensive catacombs. There are extensive places. They've got extensive living quarters, um, and there's actually a thriving mini culture / commerce community in the middle of it, where there's shops and presumably inns or something equivalent. I certainly did that because my players, I don't know how many times I've had them go to Lokil, like probably half a dozen, for various sundry plot reasons. And I just kind of picture like you're in this cavern and you turn a corner and lo and behold there's like a shop or like an in cavernous inn or something like that. So kind of cool. I think there's an actual real world town that's all underground like that.
Hmm.
You could use this as an example. Look it up on the internet. It's out there. But you can have things like that. So, but it's all inside. Um, it's kind of cool. They heavily worship Hadrada, god of knowledge, lawful neutral. Very, very, very structured place. They have a whole priesthood of Hadrada here, and a whole mess of monks. Like, if you want to be a cool monk in the Scarred Land, who's like kind of a monk crossed with a lore bard,
Yeah.
this is your jam, because they're called the Order of the Closed Book, which I think is neat. It comes from a quote by the current ruler of the city, Aliki Nabega. Correct me on that. Who's I think's human in both versions. And he said, let me get this quote because it's great. Someday I'll find the quote. I was just looking for it. Ah, here it is. There comes a time when even the meekest among us must close our books and draw up our weapons of war, he said at one point. And the folks who are like a little bit more athletic, a little bit more like, yes, we should defend ourselves, and we gotta go deal with that undead that keeps rising up just outside. We're like, yes, we will close our books and we will go punch some heads and kickbox or something. And so this bunch of guys decided to become monks, and they're still like academics, don't get me wrong, but they'll take their books, occasionally close them, and then go beat people up with them. That's what I picture. I always picture the Order of the Closed Book as like, I have a book. I whack you on the head with it.
Depending on what volume it is, you don't want to get hit with that.
Yeah, really. And their book covers are made of obsidian, so this is like getting hit with a big rock.
Right.
So anyway, really cool monks, kind of their jam. So it's like monks, librarians, who are basically wizards most of the time, and clerics. So those are your major classes that you're gonna run into. Acolytes, if you want to go with the NPC classes. And so very scholarly location. So you want to be a PC who comes from a kind of monk-like temple-like place, but you want it to be really knowledge-based. Lokil is just the bomb for that. So I think it's kind of neat. And you could be out adventuring, going, I'm going to find new things to bring back to the library.
Totally.
So the idea of Lokil sending out adventurers totally maps. And you could be a wizard, you could be a cleric, you could be a monk. Probably you could be other things too. I've tried. I was like, what a rogue from Lokil. I don't know what a rogue from Lokil
right.
Like, but what I meant is if you're lawful neutral, you'd fit. So in and around there, or be creative. So there is all of that. Things they have there, for in terms of export, import, what they do. The main resource they have is these mines underneath the sea, which mostly mine obsidian, which is, like, think of obsidian in the real world. Obsidian in the Scarred Lands is a big deal. Obsidian in the real world, obsidian in the Scarred Lands is got cooler magical properties. Lokil, they use it. I wasn't kidding when I said they make book covers out of it. They really do make covers out of it. It's kind of weird. It's like this slate rock thing. You lift it open, and then there's like paper tied to it or something, and then it's like keeps the paper really safe.
Right.
But they also grind it up and make ink out of it. So that's kind of like mica-ish ink.
Yeah.
But what's not mentioned here, in this book, but it is, well, it's mentioned in some of the other Scarlands book, is obsidian is, as a material, is something that can harm Silurian. As like kind of anti-scion properties to it. And this is important for Lokil. Incredibly important for Lokil. And for some reason it has like anti-psi properties. Although they do not get that into that in this description here. It's buried in some of the other lore books if you kind of dig through. So, bunch of obsidian mines, which is cool. That's their main export. It's obsidian, knowledge, ink, paper. But they still serve a pretty good trade, because people come in and they're like, I want knowledge about a thing, and they go, okay, you can peruse our library if you give us vegetables.
Right.
Yeah. We have somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 people to feed.
We're having our canned food drive this week. You bring a can in, you get to read a book.
Exactly. They don't seem to grow food.
It would be, I guess they could do mushrooms inside the mountain. But, uh-oh, there goes Sarah. Where did Sarah go? It never fails, though. Sooner or later, Sarah's computer is gonna just crap out. Is she back?
I'm working on it.
Welcome, Pseudo back.
You know it was gonna happen.
I was just saying, sooner or later, you can assume it was gonna happen. So.
It's gonna happen, and I don't even have the thing running. So I don't have Twitch running, so I can't say. But it still happens every flipping week.
It's true.
At about the 80-minute mark, my Discord crashes.
Yay! And
it won't crash tonight. Like, I do another 2-hour stream every other Friday night, and it doesn't crash during that. No, and we're streaming video, and it doesn't crash. Go figure. Midday. I think something just happens on our internet around noonish.
Yeah.
My time.
It happens.
It happens. So, anywho, what was I saying? Do you have the map of the vertical cross map of?
I do. That's what's up right now.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect. So the Great Hall was a cool spot, I thought. But again, my argument as to why there's probably not 50,000 people living in this mountain, because it's described as this huge meeting room, and it's lengthwise as big as anything. So I'm like, if it's a room, even if it's several hundred feet by several hundred feet,
right?
That's still.
What number is it on the map? Do you know?
4.
Number 4. Yeah, so you're looking at like 500 feet wide.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's a scale. That's right. So still as big as a stadium-ish, but a single room. But what's neat about it is that on the outer wall, there's actually a window built in the side of the mountain. So you can look, and I imagine this thing is massive, big window, probably 10, 15 feet tall and really, really wide, maybe 100 feet wide. I don't know how wide, but big thing that you can just walk up to and like eat your popcorn and look out at the. And it doesn't say which direction is like on this map, which way is north and east and whatnot. So I'm not sure which side of the city the window looks out. Whether it's those, but I assume that the 11 is where on this map is where the old city used to be, and I imagine the old city was probably on the eastern side of the mountain, because that would be closer to civilization. I mean, I don't know why you'd build the city on the desert side. I imagine you'd put the city on the not desert side. So imagine the window probably looks over the desert side. But I am wildly guessing. Just assuming. And that would flip this map over so that the left side of the map would be the east side of the city, maybe. But I'm guessing wildly. And typically maps you'd have the left side be the west side, but not a clue. Which would also imply that the front of the city would be on the desert side too, though. Of the front of the library, not the city, because the library is on the opposite side of where the city is too. Unless the city was built all the way around the mountain, and they just threw a number. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So big, great hall. Where presumably you can get like a whole bunch of people to do big events, and there's a big temple of Hadrada there. I imagine it's where they do weddings and parties there.
Very strict parties.
They're not. This is not Hadrad. This Lokil is not as strict as the city of Hadrad.
Which is probably good, because...
Which is good. Yeah, Hadrad, where you get fined for smiling and holding hands and get thrown in jail for laughing too loudly. I don't think Lokil is that. Hadrada is like... I don't think he's as draconian as implied in his namesake city. But
yeah, that's a lot of like interpretation on mortals' parts. They're just taking what they want.
I think so. I think so. I think so. Yeah, but Lokil is still pretty strict, and the idea of anybody breaking the rules is like unheard of.
Yeah.
You know. Also, imagine the overdue library book fines.
Right.
Nobody would want to break the rules.
Maybe that's why you have like fighters and rogues and stuff that are coming out from they're the people who are going out to get the fines.
To get the fines.
They're the heavies that are sent after people who have like overdue books. And
although to be fair, you're not generally allowed to take books out of the library either. So you go in, you go bring your book to your little cubby nook thing. And read it there, and then when they scan you on your way out to make sure you haven't walked off with something, and I imagine they do. What I didn't mention, because it's not so explicit on the map, is there's this central, like, core tube that runs down the middle of the mountain, and you can see on the map, based on the scale, that presumably the 0 to 200 is feet.
I believe that's what it is, yeah.
So this thing is a good 60 feet wide, and it's a lift. It's just massive elevator that, not like in a technical sense, but just in ropes and pulleys and some kind of platform that runs up and down what's effectively a giant mine shaft. So I think that's really neat. And boy, I added a ton of color to that whenever I run Lokil. It's like, and you go in this giant elevator, and then like... people are pulling the rope, and there's like magic and shit. And this is where I'm just like, and because they've got all these wizards and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, so what they take is like 17 versions of what's the
Tensor's floating disk?
Tensor's floating disk, yeah. And they just sort of overload Tensor's floating platform with like an actual physical platform, make it go up and down. I don't know, or levitate spells. It can be magic. It's fun.
Yeah.
You do have fun with the massive lift that runs through the middle of Lokil. So I think that's neat.
Yeah.
When you enter at where it says 7, it's just a giant hallway that's like, I could describe this. This is totally off topic, but it's called the Grand Entryway, and you can see in the map it's a good 400 feet long. That's long.
Yeah.
I have been. This was years ago, but I've been in what at the time was considered the largest building in the world. Not the tallest, but the largest, which is to say the longest and widest building in the world at the time, which was about over 15 years ago. And it's the Boeing's plant in Everett, Washington. Is Everett? Renton. It's somewhere in Washington State. I feel bad because that's where I live. Anyway, biggest it was at the time, probably still is, and it's where they build 747s, or at the time, and that's where they build airplanes. I imagine it's 787s now, or whatever it is they're building now. But at the time, they were building 747s, and this building is many stories tall, like 13, 14 stories tall, and like a mile long and completely hollow. And we went up on this view observation thing, and you could see half a dozen 747s, and remember 747s are the big planes that have like 2 stories
Yeah.
of seats, nose to tail in a line as they're building. And in various states of build, so some of them weren't, didn't have the tail yet, but all of these 747s lined up. That's how big the building is. That's kind of what I imagine this hallway is like.
Yeah.
And you go down this utility corridor to get to that observation thing, which is like halfway through the building, and you go on these kind of golf cart things to travel because it's so massive. This was like 15 plus years ago. I have no idea if it's like that now, but 20 years ago. It was a long time ago that I get to go on this tour. But that's what I imagine this hallway is like. You just look down, and that building, there's fluorescent lights as far as you can see.
Right.
And I imagine it's probably continual lit torches, but because wizards. But that's what I picture.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really long hallway, and no observation deck or anything like that, but some kind of really, really long, just like I can't see the other end. And that building, that Boeing building is so massive it gets its own internal weather.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
Not kidding.
Yeah.
Like you could see like kind of foggy areas because it's completely open.
Yeah.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. So that's kind of what I picture. I'm glad I had that experience because it kind of gives you that imagery of what it would look like. So that's the long hallway. And then below, so we had the living quarters above that. And below that is the archive, because they buried that one really deep. So I've mentioned underground vaults of like, this is where we put the scary stuff. And then below that is the obsidian mines. And then below that, because there is another layer, they don't dig, they're very careful now in digging the obsidian mines. Because they did the Barad-dûr mistake.
Yeah.
They dug too deep, and they woke something up, and now it's like, shh, to sleep.
Right.
They're fearful now. The new book is very vague. They just call it, what do they call it? Site 35?
Yeah.
Just this mysterious Area 50. I call it Area
Right.
51.
It is totally Area 51.
What is it? We don't know. The new book is all like vague and like we don't know. It's some kind of mysterious something. We dug something up. It's gonna come eat us. There's monsters down there. Umber hulks. I don't know. The old book was very explicit as to what they found. So I was like, why are they hedging on this? There's a whole sidebar on what the heck is underneath those mines. And the implication was that they woke up a Slorasian dragon.
Yeah.
Oops.
And,
Who?
And multiple. Yeah. There's a line from the Echoes of the Past book that says, while the Order of the Closed Book, going back to the monks, provides the frontline defense against the Slorasian terrors rampaging below. So you get the feeling that there's the dragon, but then there's like all this other random shit running around down there.
Yeah. I remember last episode when I was talking about Chardoon coming out of the Wall of Bones.
Right.
This is where they were going.
Right.
They were coming to stop this business, because if the Slorasians were to return, that dragon, they'd have Lokil. They would have it. And when I ran the Return of the Slorasians as part of my campaign, and Lokil was the first thing to fall. And it's just like, this dragon. And I had this wonderful, so spoiler, I had this wonderful scene, one of the best scenes I've run, where the dragon flies up the shaft.
Yeah.
And the PCs are in the shaft, on the lift, going as fast as they can to
Bulldozer!
the mountain, trying to shoot magic missiles at this dragon who's just shaking them off.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. And they reach the top, and they get to the observatory, and the dragon is meanwhile just distracted by all the things. And there's all these like monks and wizards and whatnot trying to fight the dragon. PCs have made it to the observatory, and wizards are just teleporting away, climbing down the mountain, just freaking out, and it's just this wonderfully beautiful scene. And just I loved it. I love that whole bit of just like, and these wizards are like, I can take 6 of you to teleport, and like they're just trying to escape from what is clearly their doom. So I just, it was just so much fun to run. So, you know, if you're okay with Lokil falling,
Right.
but that's, you know, a potential plot down the road when your PCs are level 18. You can handle that. But yeah, but before that, great place to just have stuff happen. And go with the things. And it does make an appearance in Benches of the Shunned.
Lokil. It does.
Yeah. So my campaign is literally, that's their next destination.
Nice.
Lokil. So I'm at that point in the game. And yeah, so it's set. It's kind of like everybody goes. Great spot for that. And yeah, anyway, the uncovering the Slorician ruins, and the old original lore, they say that the council, and probably why this isn't explicitly described in the SLPG, because the SLPG is the player guide, so they don't want the players to know these things, and this is what players would know, not GMs, is that this is a big secret. The Council of Lokil has not let this out, that this is what they found, just that there's something down there. But as far as the people Lokil know, it's no big deal. They probably just ran into some Umber Hulks or something, you know.
Yeah, just don't go just don't go down there. It's not a lunch spot. Yeah.
There's some Titan spawn. Just don't go through that hole. You should be fine. Just, it's okay. You hear any funny noises, tell us. Yeah. Not a dragon.
Yeah, it's definitely not a dragon. Not a dragon.
Definitely not a dragon. It's just some something. There's a, you know, rust monsters down there.
Yeah.
Normal underground stuff. And that's of course the fun thing to do is you get the adventuring party, you send them down in the mine, you go, there's some rust monsters we need you killing, and they go down and they enter the Slorician ruins and fun and
right.
All fun crazy stuff. And then suddenly they're face to face with you. And I get the sense that the dragon himself is like, leave me alone. Because
most of them are. Yeah,
particularly the racing dragons. They're like, wait, I want my master's returned. If you can't help me with that,
go away.
They're off. Now, is there knowledge in the library about how to bring them back?
Dun 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 dun.
There could be. So that's cool. Because, like, whatever cryptic info you need for your campaign,
right,
you can stick it in this library, deep in the archives, where in some cryptic language and whatnot. Although I imagine if any of the books in this library have been affected by the language virus, they're under a very locked case.
Right.
Like, don't open that section unless you're, you know, already
infected or something, right?
Yeah, you're already part member of the Obsidian Order or something like that. Yeah, and that's, yeah, and oh yeah, the Obsidian Order. I've touched on another Secrets of Society thing. They fight the Sloricians. They're this order of anti-scions, who may be scions themselves, but 5th edition has not touched psionics, has not barely touched the surface of the Sloricians, vague, otherworldly, so we don't know how that works. But in 3.5, the Scion, there were Obsidian Order, which is a group fighting the Sloricians, and they, because obsidian, as I said before, is this magical-ish substance that is Scion-proof, the Obsidian Order would want a bunch of it to make weapons out of, and they would get it here, because this is where obsidian is mined. So I had an alliance between the Obsidian Order and the Library of Lokil, because that just made sense.
Yeah.
And that when those librarians find out that it's a Slorician dragon living down there, they would probably call the Obsidian Order for helpsies. But the Obsidian Order is a secret society, so would they know about them? but the Order of the Closed Book is all about the secrets. So I would say yes. So there you go. So
Yeah.
I can imagine if you want to throw in some mysteriously weird fighter warrior monks who seem to use powers that are unworldly.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually in the Echoes to the Past book, they talk about the lucid Cenobites, which are the monks, the Order of the Closed Book, who have been infected by the language virus. But it didn't make them become unloyal to or disloyal to
Yeah.
their posts. They're still in Lokil, but it does talk about how they've like really kind of become a little different mentality wise. They're a little less about the distraction. What's the they see the world only as a distraction. They focus solely upon spiritual matters. It states that it is uncertain how loyal these monks will prove should the ancient Sloretians return.
Yeah. So
Because
fun.
if these monks are like, I'm seeking enlightenment, the Sloretians are going to grant them that level that they're really aiming for, and so will they turn against Lokil, or will they fight the Sloretians and keep them back? And they might be some of the only defense Lokil has against them, because they are psionic at this point and they can do
Yeah.
some of the shit that can actually hurt the Sloretians. So
Yeah, and I've played with all that stuff,
yeah,
but how that applies to 5th edition, so we don't have psionics
yeah,
clear yet, and how psionics and Scarlands 5th edition new retcon, I don't know, I have no idea. But even if they're just magic, it's still something different. You know, it's still something interesting. So, and I do love that this substance, this obsidian, is this kind of potential weapon used against them, and that the exposure to the Sloresian language virus, which can give you psionic powers in the Olor, and also messes with your ability to speak and talk about language virus, but that has that connection, and that if you want to be deliberately exposed to it, you could go to Lokil and be like, "Can we get in that archive?"
right?
Because I guarantee they have books that are infected that they've got under some kind of locked vault somewhere.
Right.
So guarantee it that they would. And then they would know, and that the elders amongst their order would know all about it.
Right.
And be like, nope, not that one. Bob is the only one allowed to handle that book because he's already been affected. We've already cured him.
Who's
like,
Bob? Oh, he's the guy you can't understand.
Yeah. But, well, because you can be cured of the virus.
It's true. It's true.
It's like unlike COVID, there's a vaccine for that.
Jolly Any other points you want to make before we wrap up today's episode?
I love Lokil. It's one of my favorite locations, but I've said that about many locations.
It is definitely a very useful one, very colorful, very full of opportunities for DM. Totally.
Yeah, and just a fun that place, and it's kind of not quite smack dab in the middle of Gelspad, but certainly there. Hard to reach though.
Yeah.
Because it's not really near anything.
Stuff, right?
Yeah,
it is a travel to get there.
Yeah, and from pretty much the heteronomy of Reduc is probably the safest place to come from. And that's only if you're running a campaign that's already in Calastian hegemony. But anywhere else, I guess the Gleaming Valley, coming from the Gleaming Valley would work too. So, and Holofaust, yeah, and Holofaust is their main ally. So, in terms of allies of Lokil, Holofaust is like they're sister cities in many ways, even though Holofaust is a lot bigger. As they both worship Hadrad. Although, well, I say Holofaust worships more than Hadrada, and Lokil doesn't really worship more than Hadrada, but they're definitely in there. They're definitely allied with them. And maybe next time we can talk about Holofaust?
Yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, so big book there. So
For
yeah.
this time, why don't you tell us all about yourself, Sarah?
Did I do this today already? Okay. Still Sarah Stewart. Still the author of
That there book.
Vision. That there book, book 1, Refresh Your Shadows and Dreams. It's got all the markers because we do readings out of this specific book. All the cool scenes are marked off in tabs. Sticky notes. I have a bunch of stuff on Drive Through RPG. Mists of Algos. That's a fun one to check out. Vigilant Training Missions. Maritime Patrol. That one's a fun one to check out, which is Mists of Algos is a sequel to that. And the Calendar for the Scarlands. And Serpent and Flora. A conversion to 5th edition. And I swear I have something else, but I don't remember what it is. And something TBD. Well, TBA.
Yeah.
TBA. I've got a new TBA thing coming out.
To be announced at some point.
At some point.
I think.
I know when, but I can't say when yet.
Yeah, I know the release date, but as far as the announcement date, I think we're still waiting on the.
We're still waiting on the announcement date.
Yeah.
So we've got a cool thing coming soon.
And I'm Jeremy Hochhalter. I am the owner of this here Twitch channel, WH Publications. You can find me at WH Publications over on Facebook as well, on Twitter at WHPubs. You can go to WHPublications.com and see all the fun stuff that I've published for DM's Guild and Sarisha and Vault / Drive Through RPG. Fun.
Very fun.
Join us on Friday afternoons here on this channel for Scarlands actual play, the Curiosity Cache, which I just got icons or emoticons made for the channel now that I am an affiliate here. Yeah, so that's fun. Although one of our main characters, Braca, his character art didn't convert over very well, so I need to have another one made for him. But that being said, join us then, and then Sarah and I are on a live play on Mondays, on Plastic Age Plays here on Twitch, which is Travis Legg's channel. He's the line developer for Scarlands, and he runs a Scarlands actual play family affair. It has been a hoot. Come check us out. 3 o'clock.
That is also available as a podcast. It is noon Pacific, so presumably 3 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Smack dab in the middle of the day on a Monday, so no one will ever watch it live, but
everyone gets to watch it post live.
Yeah, it's available on podcast.
Yeah.
Or earlier if you're on Travis's.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching.
I do not have a Patreon, but I assume you have a Patreon?
Not yet. I was actually going to launch one at the beginning of the year, and then COVID hit, and I'm like, I feel really weird launching a Patreon in the middle of, or at the beginning of a pandemic, so I held off. But we'll see.
Just buy our crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.